First and 12. A weekly roundup of America's most competitive football conference, the Big 12. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It is KSL News Radio. It's First and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. Thanks for being with us on the program. As we break down all things Big 12, of course, the college football playoff rankings, week number 1, they're out, and they're staring us in the face here. And just to update you, the Big 12 has 3 representatives in the top 13. How about Utah at 13? That was probably the biggest surprise, Mitch, right? The one that I think everybody goes, whoa. They jumped way up. And if there was one team you could probably make a case for in all of the rankings to say, hey, we didn't go off of the AP rankings. We're our own ranking group. The College Football Playoff Committee would point at Utah. Texas Tech at 8, and BYU opening up the College Football Playoff rankings the first week at number 7. So we'll have more of those to break down as well. But let's break it down, though, Mitch. Right now it is our Big 12, the biggest one that we saw during the week. It was Utah and Cincinnati, and this is where we watched this one, and it got us to where we think about this Utah team really making a move. It's our Big 12 game of the week.
The big time Big 12 game of the week on First and 12.
Utah took down Cincinnati 45-14, and I think this performance over the weekend is one of the big reasons you've got Utah now at number 13 in the college football playoff rankings heading into the bye. And this was a dominant performance because I think we had a lot of questions about Cincinnati. Were they for real? Because honestly, up until the past month and a half of the season, Cincinnati's been an afterthought in this conference since they joined. They've been pretty much just a cellar dweller, and it looked like Scott Satterfield going into this year was going to be on the hot seat. And this was a moment for Cincinnati to really kind of see how they stacked up against a Utah team that was clearly surging after the win they had a couple weeks ago against Colorado, and they just built on that momentum, and Cincinnati was no match for Utah. I thought Utah's ground attack with Wayshawn Parker was an early tone setter for the Utes, and then Devin Dampier, the quarterback, he returned, and he looked really good in this game. I thought Utah all around was pretty complete, whereas Cincinnati still a long way to go from reaching the tops of this league.
Let me give you some numbers that make Kyle Whittingham have like just these awesome dreams of football playing in his head. How about time of possession? Did you see this stat? The Utes led the time of possession of this game 40 minutes and 2 seconds to 19:58 for Cincinnati. So they double them up on time of possession. That by itself, Whit would say, then we probably won the game. Like if you didn't show them any other stat, that was exactly what it was. Now, Utah lost a fumble. They lost an interception. But Brendan Sorsby didn't turn the ball over more. He was accounted for 1 turnover all season long in the prior 8 games to this game. They end up turning the ball over 3 times. He throws another interception. And it was just what you could tell from that was it just wasn't the Cincinnati team that I think that people were hoping for that was going to show up. This is the Utah team that we've seen do this before, Mitch. Teams come in and they go, yeah, come on in. Play at night. We're going to wear black uniforms. Hope you're okay with that. And I don't know if anybody told Cincinnati, but any team who rolls in to Rice-Eccles Stadium at night when the Utah is wearing the black jerseys and they're wearing the hand-painted helmets, like these are absolutely dire situations for teams. Avoid them at all costs. Never play Utah late. Never play Utah when they're wearing the full black jerseys. Never play Utah when they're wearing the hand-painted helmets. All of those things added up to a 45-14 win. And it felt like it wasn't even that close, to be honest, Mitch. I mean, the second half, Cincinnati gets that 88-yard touchdown pass, and you went, okay, this is a 10-yard. There's a 10-point game. Utah of last year would have lost that, or would have just kind of floundered on offense, had to punt the ball away, right? We saw this. And now they have an offense that is one of the top offenses in the entire country. From a scoring standpoint, they're number 4 in the country. From a total offense perspective, they're number 11. Far cry from last year when they just couldn't put any points together. They were second to last in the Big 12 in scoring per game. And it was just it just is to see that flip. Not just hiring Jason Beck, but getting Devin Dampier in there, having Devin Dampier healthy. All those things added up to Utah blowing the doors off of Cincinnati that I think a lot of people looked and they went, oh, okay, well, Cincinnati, that's a little bit more along the lines of what we're expecting out of the Bearcats this year. I don't want to totally put them away, but at the same time, That's a tough thing to come back from, but they do only have one loss in conference play, so they're in the conversation.
And in Big 12 games only, if you just focus on just the conference only, Utah is number one scoring offense in the league at 36.5 points per game. They have been on fire as of late. And I thought another big piece, too, to this game for Utah was the special teams in Carvalho, who, remember, had that muff punt against BYU,
right.
And he was facing a lot of criticisms and doubts about him as the punt return man. He silenced those critics with a big 75-yard punt return for a touchdown. I thought that was big. So you're getting all three phases for Utah, because when Utah was at their peak with Kyle Whittingham, it feels like they're trending back toward that. You know, they had that complimentary football, all three phases, locked and loaded and clicking on all cylinders, the cliche there. But I think that's something that kind of stood out to me, because really, since Utah joined the Big 12, there's been like one area of a game, lets them down. If one area is up, the other area is just a no-show. And, having all three phases, that's what you get from Utah, and that's what you've seen the last 2 weeks. They're clearly trending up. And I think Cincinnati's still a really good football team. I mean, Cincy, their two losses are to Utah and a solid Nebraska team who, was and that was in week one, where imagine if Cincinnati would not have given up that home game and ended up playing it for money in Kansas City. Maybe they win that game if it had been played in Nippert. You'd be talking about a one-loss team.
Right.
That would probably be in these playoff rankings tonight too. Missed opportunity there for Cincy, but they're good. I just think that I don't look at them now in the thought of their championship Arlington good. I think this is a 3-team race pretty much, and Utah is clearly in the thick of it. They're just hoping they get some breaks go their way and some things follow their direction so they can get to Arlington, because they feel like a team that if they do get there, watch out.
Yeah, and I think that we've all been impressed with what Scott Satterfield's done this year. The thing that's more impressive to me is when you think about teams that have had turnarounds, it feels like Cincinnati has had a massive turnaround. It's felt like Houston has had a great and huge turnaround. It feels like Utah is the team that we actually kind of knew that they were. It wasn't a turnaround. It was more like of an identity-finding mission over the past, 365 days. You know what I mean? If this is the team that we were familiar with watching them in the Pac-12. We knew what Kyle Whittingham could do when he has the talent that he does. And he's had the talent. It just didn't go together last year. It just was one of these weird off years, and that's what it feels more like, that was the outlier versus, having success as being the outlier. And I'm telling everybody else, because we're familiar with what this Utah team can do, watch out. You could have this team be good for a really, really long time. And by the way, Devin Dampier's only a junior. So when you talk about, or he might even just be, regardless, I think he has a couple of years left under his belt that he could still play at Utah. And that's good news for Utah fans. And they're going to put a good defense together. So whether or not this is Kyle Whittingham's last year or not, that's yet to be seen. But Utah can make a real run right now, and everybody's sitting up and watching, because if this team hadn't won 2 Pac-12 titles, within the past 5 years, we probably wouldn't be thinking of them as much. But I think that a lot of that respect they got from the playoff committee tonight in the first rankings, correct me if you think I'm wrong, because I know they're supposed to go off of whatever else, but it's hard not to be biased by what Kyle Whittingham could do with a team.
I agree, and I think Utah's an interesting barometer, too, in this league, because if you don't show up with physicality, you're not going to beat Utah. They take care of business against teams that are far inferior in the physicality department. And since he could not handle Utah's physicality, the only 2 teams that outclassed Utah in physicality this year were Texas Tech and BYU, and no surprise they won. So I think it's a good barometer of where, when you look at teams long-term in the Big 12 race with Cincinnati, yes, only 1 loss in league, but we know in this conference that physicality has to show up week after week if you're actually going to go win the thing and go to Arlington and win this trophy with John Pardee singing in the background. You've got to have that WWE belt over your head. You've got to have a physical football team, and Corleone is outstanding.
Yeah.
And, it was a big loss to not have Evan Pryor at running back, but still, I just thought that it shows there's a pretty big gap. If Cincy's number 5 and Utah's 2 or 3, there's a pretty big gap between those teams. So I thought it was just a really good performance from Utah. And again, I think this showing is what put Utah in the position where they're knocking on the door of the bracket for the playoff, despite being a 2-loss team this season.
Let's get out to another break here. We'll come back. Guess what we have? Our Big 12 Sound Roundup right around the corner. Going to be able to hear from a handful of coaches, some seeing the success and others wondering what is going on with their team. That's all coming up right here. It is First and 12 right here on KSL News Radio 102.7 FM, 1160 AM. Alex, Kirry, Mitch, Harper, thanks for being with us. We'll be right back.